Hi, I'm Tiffany,
And I'm Trinnie.
and we're with Alexander's Aesthetics.
Alexander's Aesthetics, if you don't know, is a wholesale distributor, and we're located in Burlingame, California, and Louisville, Colorado. We offer superior supplies
Essential education.
and a whole lot more. And we also really love doing stuff like this. So NASNPRO is something that we've just really loved doing this year. Today we're going to be chit-chatting about a, I think, interesting topic for sure, sugaring. So I have a different perspective of sugaring than Tiffany. Tiffany is our hair removal expert, where I enjoy hair removal, but maybe not so much. This is definitely her realm. And sugaring is one of those services that is intimidating. It was for me and still is in some ways. So today is an opportunity for us just to chat, talk about different pastes, and maybe help empower you as the esthetician to have a little bit more confidence within this service. So I'm going to pass this over to Tiffany so she can kind of give us a history on her sugaring experience and kind of all that info.
So sugaring is actually one of the oldest forms of hair removal. Most people really do think it's a newer. Is this new? I haven't heard of this sugaring before. I still get that from a lot of clients. It's actually one of the oldest forms. One of the reasons I do think why it hasn't really been out there as much is it's not really taught in beauty schools quite yet. Not many beauty schools around the country teach it, and those that do, maybe you don't have the confidence to kind of keep working with it, right? It's like anything else, it's all about practice. So the other nice thing about paste and sugaring is the ingredients. The ingredients are really easy to remember. It's sugar, water, lemon. There is definitely a little, every once in a while there's a little variation within those, but generally you're really only looking at sugar, water, and lemon, so it's a natural form of hair removal. You have less waste. I've had a lot of success sugaring clients who are on chemo drugs or going through chemotherapy. Again, you are always going to test this out. There's an exception to every rule, but I'm more confident in working on those clients. Because I will tell you, my poor clients who are going through chemo, they're like, I may be losing the hair on my head, but the hair on my lip, that's still there. We need to get that to be gone, right? So I can still help them out. One of the things that's a little bit challenging when sugaring is learning the pastes. Like anything else in our industry, there's multiple to choose from within each brand. There's a reason why there's different ones. Some of them vary, and varies based on water content for the most part. So what I would use for Brazilian and underarms is different than what I would use for the body. You're not going to really be able to pick one paste for everything. You might, totally fine if you do, but you do need a little bit of variation. Bikinis, Brazilians, underarms, those areas tend to perspire. So you need a paste that's drier. That way, as there's perspiration in the body and on the skin that you're working on, that moisture can just kind of absorb into the paste. It actually makes it a little softer as you work. So you tend to start with a firmer paste for those areas that perspire.
So when you're sugaring, do you have multiple sugaring pots going, or is it just like, how do I
decide what's in? So not all pastes need to be in the sugaring warmer necessarily, but I like my pastes in warmers because it is easier just to get out of the container. So you always have your firmer pastes in some type of warmer. You generally do just want a sugar warmer. Your wax warmers get too hot for the paste, and you don't really want that to be too hot because you can end up just burning the paste that way. And then my softer pastes, I don't necessarily need in the warmer because they are soft enough that I can just maneuver them out if they're just sitting on my counter.
Oh, okay. So if you have a client come in and they've never had sugaring done, if we were having a conversation with them about the service, and maybe they ask, why would I choose sugaring over a different hair removal type of service? What are the benefits?
The benefits is a good question. One of the major benefits of sugaring is less ingrown hair, because we're applying the paste in the opposite direction of hair growth, and since we're removing the paste in the direction of hair growth, you're really less likely on any kind of hair breakage, especially those clients who have really dehydrated, dry skin. A lot of times their hair is also that dry and it can just break. So with the paste, it's soft enough, it just grabs onto the hair itself. It melts a little bit into the follicle, which is one of the nicer things too, is it's water soluble, so you never actually get stuck, is what I like to say. And in that flick of the removal process, the hair just slides out of the follicle because it's going in that direction already.
So when we talk about sugaring and how you go, I mean, it's completely opposite from what you learn when you wax, right? So I think that for me, when I first started sugaring, was like the biggest obstacle, was learning to not only go in a different direction, but body ergonomics, I think, was like so confusing. And I think even with like the, when you were talking about doing a lip, because you would be going opposite and then
down. Yep, and then pull down. Yep.
Sugaring is so different, but
one of the things I always like to say, and it's a little aggressive to the students, is you're not going to do very well at the very beginning. I was horrible at it. It was awful. I was like, wow, this is fun. And I threw paste all over. I threw it against walls because I would flick so hard, or it would end up in my hair or on my client, another body part on them or something. It's not the easiest service to learn. It's really just patience. But nothing that we learned when we were in beauty school, it took you a while. It used to take you 20 minutes to just cleanse the skin because you're counting and you're trying to remember the movements. It's the exact same thing. It's just practice. That's all it takes. So I would say, Pritch family and friends, that's what they're there for. Those are your models right there.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you have a little grudge on something. You can come on in. Let me shoot you.
Yeah, let me practice some Brazilian sugar on you. See how that goes.
It's just simple things as students do. Little pleasures.
But you also, one of the other benefits is you can also use that same piece of paste for multiple body parts. So if you're doing an underarm and Brazilian, that's the same type of paste. You're just going to use that same ball of paste. You're going to do the underarms first, and then you can do your Brazilian. So even there, you're still having less waste in product, and honestly, your cost is a little less as well.
Yeah, I was going to say the cost would be such a big,
it's a major factor in what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that all together already helps you move a little bit more efficiently, which is nice. You're not having to constantly go back and forth to get more product out. And because you're just utilizing your hands, you again have one less thing to continually grab for and or throw away. So you only really go through some gloves and some paste for your service.
That's awesome. So let's get into these sugaring types, because I think it's so confusing. And when I talk to students or go to the schools or other estheticians that come into the shop, explaining the sugaring differences is just, it's sometimes kind of hard, because you're like, depending on what brand you use, there's so many different types and variations. So how do you remember all of that?
It's a good question. Well, really, you just need to remember that you need one that's firmer and one that's softer. You don't need 5 or 6 different ones necessarily. If you have one that's firmer, one that's softer, you can mix those together to create that perfect paste, depending on that person or that body part. So also, again, your room temperature, your body temperature, your client's body temperature is going to make that difference as well. So if my client is really cold, I'm cold, it's first thing in the morning, I'm going to grab a little bit more of that softer paste and a little bit less of that firmer paste, because that softer paste is going to allow and warm up the body, and it's going to be able to move smoother along the skin. Whereas if it's the afternoon, I've done a few facials, there's been a lot of steam, it's humid, I'm going to grab a little more of the firmer paste and maybe add a small bit of the softer paste depending on the body part. Because again, that firmer paste, it being warmer in the room, that'll slowly start to soften up a little bit easier and faster on whatever body part you're working on. And a lot of it is really just trial and error as to what works best for you. in your room in that situation.
So when would we use, you didn't already say when we would use the firmer paste, on what body parts?
Not necessarily. So firmer paste, I tend to use more portion of a firmer paste for Brazilians, underarms, sometimes the face as well. Even the face can be a little bit on the warmer side, especially again if your bed warmer's on or something like that. I use a little more of a firmer. I really use the softer pastes. I use for the larger body parts because you have a larger surface area to cover your backs, your chests, your legs, your arms, right? You really want to be able to smooth those from either knee or ankle to knee, right? Because you're going opposite, or knee up to hip, right? So you want that softer paste in order to do that. Your firmer pastes aren't going to get as far. So it would be like using a hard wax on the leg that isn't meant for full body waxing.
So the other thought that kind of got triggered in this conversation is I've seen strip, like sugar hair removal. So
Absolutely.
what do we do with the strip sugar?
So the strip sugar you use just like wax for the most part. You're removing it you're still removing it in the direction of hair growth. You're just using either a muslin or a Paylon strip in order to do so. So that actually saves your hand. So you would take a nice large amount on a stick. You would spread it. I still spread it in the opposite direction of the hair growth, and you cover as much of that body part. So generally you use that for the legs or maybe your backs or chests. Again, larger areas. You're going to spread it. You're still going to do that molding. You can let it sit. So if I start on the left leg, I cover as much of the left leg. Then I go to the right leg, I cover as much of the right leg. Go back, do the removal with the left leg. And you're going to remove it with actual strips. So you are still using paste. Every once in a while, the clients are like, I wanted sugaring. That is sugar. You are using paste. Just because you're using the Paylon doesn't mean it's not sugar.
So why would you use strip over? Is it just like like you said, save your wrist, or just to cover more faster speed? Or?
Absolutely. Yep. It could be to save your own ergonomics in your own hands and arms. It could be that you move faster if you're using a strip sugar on that larger body part. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. There's no right or wrong answer, I think, for using strip sugar. It's a nice option.
Would it be like more beginner friendly, would you say?
It could be, yeah, especially if you're kind of having a little bit of a hard time. You really want to offer sugaring, but you're having a harder time with that mold and that flick in the beginning. Again, there's nothing wrong with you just learning how to apply the paste, and you get more comfortable with just paste alone, right? Because it is a different type of situation. The nice thing is that if you put paste where you don't want it, or you can't really get that paste off, you just wipe it off with water.
So should a beginner go with a firmer paste or a softer paste, or somewhere in the middle, or
where do we start? I tend to say you want to start in that sweet middle spot. You want to start with a paste that you can move, but it's not going to run away on you. So something slightly firmer is an easier way to learn.
And if you played with sugar, you'll definitely understand what she means when she's saying runs away from you, because it starts to, you're like, I can't figure out.
Really
where
does run.
You're
It
like,
runs away.
it really does. So
I always say too, one of the easiest things is take some paste, sit on your couch, put on a good show, and just sit there and sugar your own legs.
yeah, I think sugaring is practice. And I mean, do you feel like there are a lot of sugaristas in the industry right now? Or?
I think there's definitely more, but I will say that most of the clients that I still get that are new all say, I can't find anyone that sugars. You're it. And I'm like, you're welcome. But I would also like to see more sugarists out in the world.
Yeah, I think it's a service that people try and they're like, I'm not good at this, and then they just give it up. But really, it's one of those things, like Tiffany was saying in the beginning, is we're not good at everything at first. So it is something that you have to tell yourself, I'm okay with not being good at this. I have encountered some people who just grab paste and you're like, have you done this somewhere before? And you're like, wow, you're amazing. but that's not always the case and usually isn't. So I think going into it and knowing that it's something you have to continuously practice and playing with the consistencies of the paste, is the firm one better for you? If you mix it, does it feel better? So I think it's just really getting your hands in
practice.
there.
Yeah. It's truly a hands-on. It's truly a hands-on thing. And one of the things I did when I first started sugaring was I do a lot of hair removal with wax. So I would say, hey, I learned this new technique. I would do part of the service with the sugar, and I'd be able to finish it with the wax if I needed to, so that I could keep my timing right. But it allowed people to learn what it was. It allowed me to practice on all the different types of people, and I wasn't intimidated because I wasn't stuck in that as the whole service when I wasn't ready yet. So once I was ready, then I really offered it. But I did bits and pieces, and that's also how I was able to switch some of my clients to sugaring, because they were like, I liked that stuff that you did that last time. They never remember, of course. So, now they actually got to try it, and they could have a side-by-side. Which one do you like better, sugar or wax?
Yes, so I hope that this chat has empowered you or inspired you to try sugaring yourself. Maybe if you have sugaring in your treatment room right now, you try to mix your pastes. We love talking about hair removal, especially Tiffany. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure our contact information is linked somewhere here on the NASNPRO site. So give us a holler. We carry paste as well, and we'd love to help if you need any help. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Tiffany, for all your info.
Thanks, Trinnie. Bye.